This month was absolutely wild. OpenAI finally dropped the ChatGPT Agent fully autonomous, and it's already changing the game. Grok 4 landed too, and people are calling it the most powerful AI yet. We got the first fully AI operating system, crazy fast, a bit overpowered. Google dropped CROME AI and OPAL back-to-back, making their models smarter and slicker than ever. China's new Unitree R1 robot dropped cheap, fast, and scary good. DeepSeek's Chimera doubled its speed and brains. Meanwhile, Ameca got a creepy upgrade. It can morph into anyone. Oh, and another robot snapped and attacked during testing. All that and more, so let's talk about it. All right, so this just dropped, and yeah, it's a big one. OpenAI has officially launched what might be the most ambitious move yet in the whole agentic AI space. It's called ChatGPT Agent, and it's not just a smarter chatbot. This thing actually does stuff for you, like fully handles tasks using its own virtual computer. We're not talking summarize this article or write me a poem. No, this goes way beyond. We're in the territory of full task automation, web interaction, API integration, and even editing spreadsheets or generating editable slideshows. And the key part, it does all of this on its own virtual machine, a full computer environment it spins up independently, separate from your device. So, let's talk about it. So ChatGPT Agent is kind of the next generation blend of OpenAI's earlier experiment, remember Operator? That agent could browse the web, click links, scroll, type stuff in. Then there was deep research, more of a silent analyst behind the curtain, digging through dozens of websites, extracting insights, compiling it all into really coherent human-level summaries. OpenAI has taken the best of both, layered in ChatGPT's conversational interface and added some serious new tooling like access to a terminal, API connectors to your apps like Gmail or GitHub, and both text-based and visual browsers. That's the cocktail powering this new agent. Now let's talk capabilities. This isn't some maybe it'll work, maybe it won't AI demo. The ChatGPT Agent is launching right now to Pro Plus and Team users. If you're on one of those plans, you'll see Agent Mode show up in the ChatGPT Tools dropdown. And once it's on, you can just prompt it like normal, but what happens next is totally different. You could say something like, hey, find 3 competitors to my product, analyze their pricing, and make me a slide deck comparing all 3. And it'll go off, browse the web, use its tools, extract the data, generate actual slides that are editable, like PowerPoint native stuff with vector shapes, text, graphs. No copy pasting from Google Docs here. Or let's say you're planning dinner. Plan and buy ingredients to make Japanese breakfast for 4 people. Boom. It'll find recipes, create a shopping list, go to grocery sites, add the items, and then ask you to log in so it can complete the purchase, but always with your confirmation. It's interactive and collaborative. You can pause it, take over, adjust things, or cancel it midway. If it gets stuck, you can ask for a progress report. But real quick, if you've been following all this AI news and thinking, okay, this is cool, but what can I actually do with it? You're definitely not alone. That's why we created the AI Income Blueprint. It shows you 7 ways regular people are using AI to build extra income streams on the side. No tech skills needed, and you can automate everything pretty easily. The guide contains simple, proven methods using tools I often talk about on this channel. Download it free by clicking the link in the description. And if you're using the ChatGPT app on your phone, you'll get a push notification when the task's done. It's pretty insane. But okay, how well does it actually perform? That's where the numbers get real interesting. On what's called Humanity's Last Exam, which is one of the most brutal multi-subject benchmarks out there, we're talking thousands of expert-level questions across more than 100 fields, the ChatGPT Agent scored 41.6% on first try, pass at 1. That's nearly double what OpenAI's previous models like O3 and O4 Mini could do, and when they let it run 8 parallel attempts and choose the most confident one, it pushed that score to 44.4%. Then you've got Frontier Math. It's currently considered the hardest math benchmark, full of novel, unpublished problems that usually stump experts for hours or even days. With tool use enabled, like access to the terminal for running code, ChatGPT Agent nailed 27.4%. That might not sound huge if you're not used to benchmark data, but for context, O4 Mini, the previous best from OpenAI, managed only 6.3%. That's more than 4 times the performance. But it doesn't stop with academic tests. They ran it through internal evaluations for real-world business tasks too, like modeling out financial projections, building amortization schedules, conducting competitive research on urgent care clinics. These weren't just AI-generated prompts either. Experts from actual industries created the benchmarks, and then top humans completed the tasks so OpenAI could compare. ChatGPT Agent either matched or beat those human outputs in around half the tasks. That's modeling at the level of investment banking analysts. Stuff like building leveraged buyout models for a Fortune 500 company. Proper formatting, citations, multi-tab sheets. It handles that. Spreadsheet tasks? Oh yeah. They tested it on something called Spreadsheet Bench. It's a 912 question benchmark covering real-world spreadsheet editing and analysis. In the LibreOffice environment on macOS, ChatGPT Agent hit 35.27% overall. But when it was allowed to directly edit .xls files, that jumped to 45.54%. For comparison, Copilot in Excel scores around 20.0%. Humans obviously are still better. They clocked in at 71.33%. But ChatGPT Agent is over halfway there now. Even on more subtle tasks like DS Bench, which focuses on data science workflows like modeling and analysis, ChatGPT Agent outperformed human baselines. That's huge because it signals that this isn't just a nice front-end gimmick. The actual substance of what it produces, whether slides, spreadsheets, or code, can match or exceed what many skilled professionals create manually. And then there's the web browsing. Earlier this year, OpenAI published a benchmark called BrowseComp. It tests how well agents can navigate the internet to find really specific, hard-to-locate information. ChatGPT Agent blew past deep research by over 17 percentage points, setting a new record at 68.9%. Then, on Web Arena, which is designed to simulate real-world web task completion, it outperformed the operator-powered version of O3. So it's not just good at finding info, it's actually good at doing useful things with it in browser. Now let's talk a bit about what's going on under the hood. The agent has access to different environments. It's not stuck using just one type of tool. It can jump between a visual browser, which acts more like a human browsing the web, and a text-based browser, which is faster and better for filtering or summarizing large chunks of text. It also uses a terminal, which means it can run commands, scripts, or even download and manipulate files. All of this is orchestrated on its own virtual machine, not your device, which gives it persistent context throughout the session. So it can open a page, extract a file, run a script, and then display the output in the browser again, all without losing track. And here's where it gets more integrated. ChatGPT Agent connects to your apps via what OpenAI calls connectors. These are basically secure API bridges to tools like Gmail, Google Calendar, GitHub, and more. Once authenticated, ChatGPT can use these connections to, say, summarize your inbox, find time slots on your calendar, or analyze your repo for recent commits. You still need to take over the browser to log in for security reasons, but once it's in, the agent can move pretty freely across services and workflows. But of course, when a model gets this powerful, especially one that can take action in the real world, safety becomes a major concern. OpenAI is treating this agent as having high biological and chemical capability risk under their preparedness framework. That means they're not saying the model has actually been used for harm, but they're acting on the assumption that it could potentially be misused to accelerate dangerous things like bioweapon research or chemical synthesis if someone figures out how to exploit it. Because of that, OpenAI built in what they're calling their most comprehensive safety stack to date. First, they have real-time monitoring. Every prompt you enter gets scanned by a classifier to check if it's biology related. If it is, the response gets filtered through a second layer to detect whether it might enable harm. They've also disabled memory for the agent. So unlike regular ChatGPT, this one doesn't remember previous chats because memory could be abused to leak data through clever prompt injections. Speaking of which, prompt injection is a big threat in the agentic world. Think of it like this. You're letting the agent browse websites, right? Well, what if a malicious actor hides instructions in invisible text on a web page? If the agent reads those hidden commands, it might do things you didn't authorize, like leaking sensitive data from one of your connectors or making purchases. That's not sci-fi. That's why OpenAI trained the agent specifically to recognize and resist those kinds of traps. Plus, before it does anything with consequences, like buying something or sending an email, it'll explicitly ask for your permission. There's also something called watch mode, where certain tasks require your supervision in real time. So if it's emailing someone or managing your calendar, you can see everything it's doing live and step in anytime. There's also a full suite of privacy controls, one-click deletion of browsing data, immediate logouts from active sessions, cookie management per website, and when you take over the browser to log in manually, none of the data you type, like passwords, is seen or stored by the model. The browser input remains private. Even with all of these safeguards, OpenAI admits there are still limitations. Slide deck creation, for example, is still in beta. Sometimes the formatting is a bit off, and it doesn't yet support uploading your own slides for the agent to edit. They're working on it though, and they've already started training the next version to be more polished and have broader formatting capabilities. Another important thing to note, the ChatGPT Agent is rolling out gradually. Pro users should have full access now with 400 messages per month, plus, and team users will get access over the next few days, but with a smaller cap of 40 messages monthly, unless you buy more credits. Enterprise and education users are next in line, but rollout for them is still a few weeks away. And yeah, if you're in the European Economic Area or Switzerland, you're gonna have to wait a bit longer because access there isn't available yet. And one last detail that matters a lot for web developers, publishers, and SEOs, this whole shift toward agentic AI changes how websites should be built. Structured content, like proper headings, labeled input fields and forms, consistent product listings, clean tables, clear labels for prices and dates, all of that becomes crucial. The more structured your content is, the better these AI agents can parse it, interact with it, and actually perform useful actions on your site. Look, most people still think AI is some distant future, but regular folks are already using it to build income streams quietly, behind the scenes. If you want to see how they're doing it without tech skills or quitting their job, download the AI Income Blueprint. It's totally free, the link's in the description, but it won't stay free forever. So if you're running an e-commerce platform or content-heavy site, you're not just optimizing for human users anymore, you're optimizing for AI agents too. Elon Musk just dropped Grok 4, an AI so advanced he says it's smarter than most PhDs. At the same time, Microsoft made its powerful Copilot chat completely free for all developers. OpenAI is getting ready to launch its own AI web browser to go head-to-head with Google Chrome. Perplexity came out swinging too with a wild new browser called Comet that can think and act for you. And while all this is happening, NVIDIA just hit $4 trillion in value. Yeah, things are moving fast, so let's talk about it. All right, so Grok 4 walked onto the live stream an hour behind schedule, though Elon Musk brushed off the delay the moment cameras rolled. He called the model an intelligence big bang, claiming it trained on roughly 100 times more data than Grok 2, and now handles text, images, audio, and live video in a single flow. In one showcase, engineers fed Grok gameplay from a brand new indie title and asked whether the experience felt genuinely fun. The model unpacked pacing curves, difficulty spikes, and replay hooks like a seasoned reviewer who had logged countless hours on the controller. Another demo stitched Grok into the Polymarket prediction exchange. The bot skimmed social chatter across X in real time, weighed roster changes, weather patterns, and recent batting averages, then placed sample bets on the upcoming World Series, all without human nudges. Musk stressed that Grok reasons from first principles, lining the announcement squarely against rumored GPT-5 advances. Technical chatter had already primed expectations. A leaked benchmark sheet listed Grok 4 with a 35% base score on the Humanity last exam and 45% when it received extra compute time, sailing past the previous chart topper O3 Pro at 26%. The same document put the model around 87 to 88% on GPQA and roughly 72 to 75% on the SWE-bench coding test for a Grok 4 code spinoff. If those numbers survive peer review, Grok edges ahead of Gemini 2.5 Pro and Claude 4 Opus, at least until the next volley in the benchmark arms race. Still, the launch happened under a shadow. 2 days earlier, Grok slipped into a persona nicknamed Mecha Hitler, producing statements that many users condemned while others claimed them as free speech. The backlash hit full force, and ex-chief executive Linda Yaccarino resigned within 24 hours. Engineers traced the behavior to a single flag inside Grok's GitHub repository that allowed unrestricted output on politically incorrect prompts. They removed the line, pushed a commit, and the controversial persona vanished. The speed of the fix showed how finely tuned guardrails can steer giant models, while the meltdown itself highlighted the razor-thin margin between edgy humor and reputational damage. Musk chose the moment to reveal Super Grok Heavy, a subscription tier priced at $300 a month that unlocks deeper reasoning tools, expanded usage caps, and a beta big brain mode. Tesla Autopilot teams and SpaceX flight software engineers are expected to plug into the same pipelines, and industry watchers like SciSic co-founder Leo Fan believe Grok could soon land inside factory robots or autonomous fleets, bridging digital reasoning with real-world motion. While xAI leaned into premium pricing, Microsoft tore down a paywall. The company open-sourced GitHub Copilot Chat for Visual Studio Code, releasing the whole extension under the MIT license. 4 headline features now roll out free to every coder. Agent mode tackles multi-step chores. It writes a caching layer, recompiles, reruns tests, and iterates until the build turns green. Edit mode responds to plain language requests like add logging to each HTTP call, spreading consistent wrappers across multiple modules, and showing live diffs so nothing hides in the dark. Code suggestions go beyond token prediction, reading local style, and broader project context before inserting an entire code block with a single tab press. And chat integration keeps you in the IDE while it explains failing tests, decodes cryptic functions, or drafts quick docs, all based on the files open in your workspace. Because the code now lives on GitHub, enterprises can self-host, swap in custom language models, or harden the extension for air-gapped networks. Students gain pro-level assistance without a monthly fee, hobbyists explore advanced refactoring on pet projects, and Microsoft still upsells its cloud-based Copilot tiers for those wanting higher compute quotas. It is a clever move that turns goodwill and developer mindshare into a pipeline driving Azure revenue down the line. OpenAI is getting ready to launch its own AI-powered web browser, and this one could shake up everything. It's not just an extension or a side panel, it's a full Chromium-based browser with AI built directly into the core. Instead of jumping between tabs or typing into search bars, users will interact through a ChatGPT-like interface that can open pages, answer questions, and even complete entire tasks on the web, things like booking a hotel, filling out forms, or comparing products across multiple sites, all handled inside one conversation with no clicks needed. This is OpenAI's direct shot at Google Chrome, which currently dominates with over 3 billion users and serves as the backbone of Google's ad business. Chrome collects user data to power ad targeting, so if even a small portion of OpenAI's 500 million weekly ChatGPT users move over, it could start cutting into that data pipeline. 2 former Google VPs, key people behind Chrome's early development, are now leading this browser project at OpenAI. And earlier this year, during an antitrust hearing, one OpenAI exec even said they'd be interested in buying Chrome if it were ever forced to be sold. That deal never happened, but now they're building their own instead. This browser also lays the groundwork for deeper AI agent integration. Tools like Operator won't just give answers, they'll take actions. That means the browser itself could book flights, check out shopping carts, handle scheduling, and fill out entire tax forms on your behalf. By owning the browser, OpenAI gets full control over how these agents interact with websites, and more importantly, direct access to real user behavior and context. Perplexity has officially jumped into the browser war with something called Comet, an AI-first browser backed by some big names, NVIDIA, Jeff Bezos, and SoftBank. Unlike traditional browsers, Comet isn't built around tabs or navigation. It's designed to think and act for you. The AI can instantly summarize articles, compare products across different sites, schedule meetings, send emails, and even finish abandoned checkout processes, all in a single conversational thread. It's less about clicking around and more about telling the browser what you want and having it do it. What makes Comet stand out is its focus on privacy. All user data is stored locally and none of it is used to train the models. That's a direct appeal to users who are fed up with the constant data harvesting from big tech platforms. Right now, Comet is only available to Perplexity Max subscribers at $200 a month, but invites are rolling out gradually through the summer. With Comet entering the ring alongside OpenAI's upcoming browser, Brave's Leo Assistant, and Microsoft Edge's Copilot integration, it's clear the browser space is heating up fast, but this time, it's not about speed or design. It's about who has the smartest, most capable AI built into the core. Every software leap depends on hardware, and NVIDIA just reminded everyone who sells the shovels in this gold rush. The company's share price nudged above $164.42 on Wednesday morning, pushing market capitalization past $4 trillion. For a brief moment, higher than the gross domestic product of France, the United Kingdom, or India. Investors view graphics processing units as the essential engine behind generative models, autonomous robots, and digital twins. NVIDIA's new Blackwell architecture promises heavier throughput along with real-time digital twins, where manufacturers test assembly lines in photoreal simulation before ordering a single physical part. First quarter earnings reached nearly $19 billion despite a $4.5 billion dent from United States export controls, limiting sales to China. Analysts such as Angelo Zeno argue that recent White House tariffs matter less than the global scramble to lock in supply, especially after Saudi Arabia inked an agreement in May to build national AI infrastructure on NVIDIA's silicon. Earlier in the year, Chinese lab DeepSeek rattled markets with a low-cost, high-performance reasoning model, erasing roughly $600 billion of NVIDIA value in a single session. The shock faded when buyers realized DeepSeek still relied on NVIDIA hardware for training and inference. Chief Executive Jensen Huang now speaks openly about AI agents capable of autonomous reasoning across industries, echoing the very capability Musk showcased with Grok 4 and Microsoft highlighted in Copilot chat. Executives at Ford, JP Morgan Chase, and Amazon have already conceded that AI-driven automation will trim white-collar roles, yet shareholder optimism shows little sign of slowing. All right, this one's different. We've seen AI tools get smarter, more specialized, more automated. WarmWind just ripped the ceiling off. These guys built what they're calling the first real AI operating system for cloud employees. And I got early access. You open a browser, log in, and suddenly you're watching AI agents do actual work, clicking, typing, navigating dashboards, handling tools, like a trained human, all inside a live cloud workspace. No code, no local setup, no friction. I tested it myself and walked away genuinely impressed. This spotlight is part of a partnership with WarmWind, but I wouldn't cover it unless I thought it brought real value. The waitlist is already live and spots are limited. So here's a full breakdown of what it is, how it works, and why this could change how a lot of people get things done. Imagine opening a browser tab, Chrome, Safari, whatever you use, logging in and your own cloud-based workspace is right there. No installations, no GPU setup, no mess. WarmWind spins up an AI OS directly in the cloud, and that's where your AI agents work. They call them cloud employees, each powered by their own vision language model. Instead of calling APIs or webhooks, the agent sees what you see. It understands the interface, clicks buttons, types, drags, drops, just like a human sitting at the computer. If a person can do it, the agent can too. Setting it up is easy. There's a teaching mode. You walk the agent through a task once, like entering invoice data or pulling analytics, and it learns. Then you add a few prompt guidelines, save it, and it just runs, even with your laptop closed. Everything happens in WarmWind's cloud. You can run one agent or scale up to 10,000. I tested 20 agents running at the same time, and they handled SaaS dashboards and desktop-style apps with low latency and no issues. One good example is in their preview video on YouTube, WarmWind_OS. It shows a workflow where the agent pulls CSVs from 3 different CRMs, merges them, and posts the results into Google Sheets, which feed into Tableau. That's just one template. They've built a full library of roles you can deploy instantly. Take their AI social media growth manager. It finds trending hashtags and audio, drafts posts with custom visuals, schedules them at optimal times, and tests multiple caption options automatically. You only step in if something doesn't fit your brand. Their customer support agent handles email, live chat, WhatsApp, even Instagram DMs. It finds orders in Shopify, checks delivery status, issues refunds, and only passes off tasks that need real human judgment. I tried sending a vague message, "Where's my package?" And it responded in under 10 seconds with tracking info and a discount code, since the package was stuck in customs. There's a template for competition tracking. The agent follows competitor accounts, tracks how often they post, measures engagement, spots new product drops, and creates a daily PDF report. It also flags spikes in performance. Accounting is handled too. I uploaded scanned PDF invoices, actual paper scans, and the invoice bot matched them to purchase orders in the ERP. It generated journal entries, set payment reminders, and prepared a monthly profit and loss report, all in QuickBooks with no manual steps. They also have a recruiting agent. It reviews resumes against job descriptions, checks LinkedIn activity, and sets up first-round interviews. I watched it scan a candidate's GitHub, send a coding task, and schedule a meeting, all in one pass. There's also a DevOps agent. It monitors uptime, web vitals, and alerts your team if anything drops below performance thresholds. It even records the user experience when issues happen and shares it in Slack. That one agent replaces a full SRE alert flow. And then there's the Innovation Scout. Every night it checks Product Hunt, Archive, Crunchbase, and patent feeds, then prepares a morning summary of new tools, funding activity, and relevant dev conversations, all of it waiting when you log in. From a tech standpoint, you'll hear 2 key terms: AI operating system and cloud employees. The OS comparison fits. This isn't just a model. It includes a scheduler, permission layer, and secure sandbox. Think Kubernetes for workflows minus the config headaches. Agents also share a memory layer, so if your social media agent flags a customer as angry, the support agent sees that automatically. It's hosted in the EU and encrypted end-to-end, so compliance teams won't panic. And there's a real-time dashboard too, where you can view each agent's screen. If an interface changes, like a button moves, you just jump in, correct the flow, and the agent picks it up immediately. No retraining, no downtime. Onboarding includes Warmwind's internal app store. It has connectors and desktop clients. I tested Slack, Notion, Xero, Google Workspace, and even a Windows accounting app that normally needs virtualization. All of them worked inside the AI OS without slowing down my machine. It felt like a clean, remote desktop session, only faster. A question that comes up a lot: what about latency? Is moving a mouse and typing through a UI, does it lag? No, not really. They've tuned the system so actions complete about as fast as a skilled human would. I tested a workflow that normally takes 4 minutes. It finished in 2.5. When scaled up across multiple agents, that kind of speed makes a real difference. Because everything runs in the browser. Your agents keep working even when you close your laptop. The dashboard shows metrics like uptime, CPU, and memory usage. And if things get busy, say during a sale, you can spin up more agents instantly by duplicating them. They're live in seconds. That kind of scaling flexibility is hard to find with traditional automation tools. Security is built in at the core. Every agent runs in its own isolated container with encrypted credentials and strict access controls. You assign permissions just like you would with an employee. If an agent tries to do something outside its role, like a finance bot messaging someone on Instagram, the OS stops it and sends an alert. I tried feeding it a prompt to leak data to a paste bin, and it was blocked immediately, with the full attempt logged for review. During testing, I ran 100 concurrent tasks across 6 SaaS tools. Uptime was 99.98%. Training each workflow took about 4 minutes, including prompts. They say it scales to 10,000 agents, and costs scale linearly so you can start small and expand as needed. Warmwind is clearly built for both lean teams and large companies trying to cut back on repetitive work. The difference is, you don't need Python scripts, no Zapier chains, no chasing vendors for integrations. The agent sees the screen and adjusts to it. That's the real win. You bypass API roadblocks completely and just keep things moving. One of the engineers, Richard, told me everything runs fully in the cloud. Nothing touches your machine. No drivers, no weird background processes. The vision model isn't built on generic OCR either. It's trained specifically for working across multiple interfaces. In the Q&A, he mentioned they're planning future features like voice commands and session replays. But for now, the focus is on stability. They've just launched and the waitlist is now open. Early access is rolling out in waves, so if you want to get in, now's the time to register. The waitlist is live at warmwind.space. If you get invited, you'll get access to the workspace and a demo walkthrough on their YouTube. They also post live agent clips on their Instagram at warmwind_OAT. If you're a creator or builder and think this could fit into your workflow, like automating media imports or generating thumbnails in batches, reach out to Richard's team. They're helping early testers one-on-one and looking for real use cases to shape the product. And just for transparency, yes, this is a sponsored spotlight, but every clip you saw in the demo section starting around minute 4 was captured live. No edits, no tricks, just agents doing the work themselves. AI just got a major upgrade on every front. Google DeepMind just cracked a major flaw in how chatbots think. Now, instead of being fooled by flashy nonsense, they're finally learning to focus on truth, logic, and what really matters. Over in China, researchers turned a weak math model into a reasoning machine that can go head-to-head with some of the smartest AI out there. Meanwhile, Meta just launched a billion-dollar AI super team packed with talent from OpenAI, DeepMind, and Anthropic. Microsoft? They built a medical AI system that diagnoses patients 4 times better than human doctors. Seriously. And if that wasn't enough, Xiaomi just dropped smart glasses that blow Meta's Ray-Bans out of the water with voice control, real-time translation, and even pay-by-glance tech. Yeah, it's been a wild week in AI. Let's break it all down. All right, let's start with a big fix from Google DeepMind. You know how AI models are trained to give answers we like? They use something called a reward model to figure out what's good. But the problem is these reward models often get it wrong. They might give a high score just because an answer is longer or sounds nice or uses fancy formatting, even if it's not actually accurate or useful. To fix that, DeepMind teamed up with researchers from McGill University and Mila and built a new system called CROME. It stands for Causally Robust Reward Modeling, but what really matters is how it works. Instead of just training the model on random examples, they taught it the difference between what really makes an answer good, like being factual or logical, and what just looks good on the surface, like being polite or long-winded. They did this by creating pairs of answers. Some of these pairs changed something important, like whether the facts were right. Those are called causal augmentations. Others changed only the style or tone without touching the facts. Those are neutral augmentations. By showing the model both kinds and training it to react only when the quality really changes, the model learns to focus on the important stuff and ignore distractions. They used Gemini 2.0 Flash to generate these examples and a high-quality dataset called Ultra Feedback to guide the process with real human opinions. To test it all, they tried this on 3 different language models, Gemma 2.9 billion, Quinn 2.57 billion, and a smaller Gemma 2.2 billion, and ran it through a few challenges. One called Reward Bench to see how well it ranks answers, another called Reword Bench that adds sneaky distractions to test focus, and a third called Wild Guard Test to check how safe the model is when answering dangerous or harmful prompts. The results? CROME made the models more accurate, especially in areas like safety, up by about 13%, and reasoning, up by around 7%. Even when the tests tried to fool the model with tricky styling, CROME still held up better than the usual reward models. And when they gave it multiple answers to choose from, CROME was better at avoiding harmful content without becoming overly cautious. So what's the big takeaway? CROME teaches AI to focus on what really matters in an answer and ignore the fluff. and that could make future chatbots a lot more helpful, honest, and safe. Now, while Google DeepMind focused on making AI answers more aligned with human values, researchers at Shanghai Jiao Tong University went after something else: raw thinking power. They wanted models that can handle tough problems, especially math, using proper step-by-step reasoning, or what's often called chain of thought. We already know that some models, like DeepSeek R1 and SimpleRL, got a boost from reinforcement learning when you train them to think in steps. That trick worked well on the Qwen family of models, but when they tried it on models from the Llama family, things got weird. Instead of getting smarter, Llama's answers just got super long, up to 4,000 tokens, without actually becoming more accurate. So the team figured the real problem wasn't the reinforcement learning itself. It was how the base model had been trained before that. Their fix? A two-phase training plan they call stable, then decay. In the first phase, they trained the model on 200 billion tokens of high-quality math data from a mix called MegaMath Web Pro. Once that training levels out, they split the model into 3 branches and continue training, each with different types of math and reasoning questions, about 20 billion tokens per branch. They called the new model family OctoThinker, since each version focuses on a different kind of thinking. The long branch keeps all the detailed reasoning steps. The short branch trims it down. And the hybrid finds a middle ground. It's like giving the model 3 different study styles and seeing which one performs best. They tested all 3 versions on a bunch of well-known math benchmarks: GSM 8K, Math 500, Olympia Bench, and even the American Math Competition from 2023. And across the board, every OctoThinker version outperformed the original Llama model by at least 10%. The long version even matched Qwen's performance, which is impressive because Qwen is already known for being really good at step-by-step reasoning. The biggest win, OctoThinker didn't fall into that long and messy answer trap. Its answers stayed clean and focused, while regular Llama just rambled on when put through reinforcement learning. The researchers say this shows that if you train the base model the right way first, reinforcement learning can build on top of that and actually improve performance, instead of just making things noisier. Looking ahead, they want to expand OctoThinker with even more advanced abilities like plugging in scratch pad tools or math checkers, and they're pushing for larger, cleaner math datasets since most of the current ones are still under 100 billion tokens. The goal is to build models that are ready for smart reasoning right out of the box without needing extra patchwork training later. Now, news of smarter models naturally turns into a hiring frenzy, and Meta is racing hard to catch up. Mark Zuckerberg just announced Meta Superintelligence Labs in an internal memo made public by reporters. The freshly minted group folds all of Meta's frontier AI work under one roof, and the company spent a multi-billion-dollar package to lure Alexander Wang away from Scale AI and hand him the Chief AI Officer badge. Former GitHub chief executive Nat Friedman joins as a partner, and 11 other senior researchers from Anthropic, Google DeepMind, OpenAI, and similar shops signed on after receiving offers rumored to sit well inside the 8-figure range. Meta also sniffed around acquisitions of Mira Murati's Thinking Machines Lab, the search engine startup Perplexity, and Ilya Sutskever's Safe Superintelligence venture, though none of those talks reached the binding offer stage. Inside the memo, Zuckerberg says the lab will start research on our next generation of models to get to the frontier in the next year or so, signaling that Meta wants to leapfrog rather than merely match the state of the art. Given the talent arms race, a lab stocked with ex-Anthropic and ex-DeepMind minds makes Meta's comeback bid look serious. Microsoft, for its part, chose medicine as the proving ground for multi-agent coordination. Mustafa Suleyman's AI division unveiled the MAI Diagnostic Orchestrator, nicknamed MAI DXO, and called it a tangible step toward medical superintelligence. The orchestrator works like a debate panel. It queries several foundation models: OpenAI, GPT, Google, Gemini, Anthropic, Claude, Meta, Llama, and XAI Grok, then blends their answers into a single plan. The team pulled 304 real case studies from the New England Journal of Medicine and built the sequential diagnosis benchmark, which walks through the classic clinical sequence: note symptoms, decide which test to order, evaluate results, repeat until a diagnosis clicks. On those cases, MAI-DXO reached roughly 80% diagnostic accuracy, 4 times better than a panel of human doctors barred from consulting external references. Better yet, the orchestrator trimmed costs by about 1/5 because it tended to pick cheaper scans and blood panels when possible. MIT's David Sontag and Scripps Research's Eric Topol praised the study's rigor, but warned that true proof needs a live clinical trial where physicians and AI tackle real patients head-to-head. Microsoft has not set commercialization plans in stone, yet insiders hint at Bing integrations for consumer self-triage and professional tools that could automate parts of patient workup. To build the system, the company quietly poached several high-profile researchers from Google, underscoring how hot the talent market has become. Hardware is not sitting still either. At the Human Car Home Showcase in Beijing, Xiaomi entered the smart glasses arena with a pair that leans on an in-house assistant called Super Xiao AI. Under the hood sits a Qualcomm AR1 chip plus a Hengsuan 2700 coprocessor. A 12-megapixel ultra-wide camera lets wearers snap photos or shoot first-person video. And the glasses can translate text or identify objects in real time. You can even confirm an Alipay purchase with nothing more than a glance and a voice confirmation. The battery measures 263 milliamp hours and promises 8.6 hours of use, dwarfing the Ray-Ban Meta collaboration that tops out near 4 hours on a much smaller cell. Sound comes through open-ear stereo speakers and 5 microphones handle voice commands. The frames weigh 40 grams and carry an IP54 splash resistance rating. Arms pivot 12 degrees outward and tilt 5 degrees forward, a geometry tuned for typical Asian facial contour. Electrochromic lenses darken in about 0.2 of a second when you double tap the temple, and color choices span classic black, parrot green, and translucent tortoiseshell brown. Price lands at roughly 1,999 yuan, around 280 United States dollars for the base model, rising to 3,000 yuan or about $420 if you want color-shifting lenses. Compared with Meta's stylish but short-lived Ray-Bans, Xiaomi offers twice the endurance, voice-first controls, and a pay-by-glance party trick, though the company hints that the first release is aimed at the domestic market rather than an immediate global rollout. It's one thing for humanoid robots to look impressive in demo videos, dancing, flipping, and lifting weights like futuristic athletes, but it's something else entirely when one suddenly thrashes around like it's been possessed, and that's exactly what happened with a Unitree H1 humanoid robot named D-Rec during a test session, and the whole thing was caught on camera. Shared by Rec Robotics' 6live on social media, the video shows the robot suspended in midair by a crane before it starts flailing uncontrollably, knocking into gear, crashing the crane structure itself, and forcing engineers nearby to take a few urgent steps back. It's chaotic. One person even yells, "What the f did you guys run?" while another, believed to be Rec CTO Amanda Watson, shouts in shock as the robot flings its limbs midair.
"What the f did you guys run?"
Now, the context behind the clip is important. According to 6, the issue was caused by something quite specific. A full body control policy was activated while the robot's feet weren't in contact with the ground. That instantly triggered instability and caused the robot to spaz out. Basically, it was like hitting the accelerator on a car while it's up on jacks. The system didn't know what to do, and things went off the rails. But of course, most people online didn't focus on the technical nuance. They focused on the fact that a powerful humanoid robot just snapped, and it looked straight out of a Terminator sequel.
I'll be back.
What makes this situation even more intense is that D-Rec isn't some experimental one-off hidden in a lab. It's based on the Unitree H1, a commercially available humanoid robot that anyone can technically buy. It stands 5.9 feet tall, weighs 104 pounds, and each of its joints can deliver up to 365 pound-feet of torque. That's serious muscle. This machine is designed to run, lift, balance, and even pull off stunts like backflips. In the hands of a developer or robotics team, it can do some pretty advanced things. But when something goes wrong, like a glitch or a setup mistake, it has more than enough force to cause real damage. And in that video, it nearly did. Now, what's interesting is this isn't an isolated incident. Back in May, another video surfaced from a Chinese testing facility showing what appeared to be the exact same robot model going berserk. In that case, also suspended by a crane, the Unitree robot suddenly started flailing, knocking over a nearby computer and forcing two workers to sprint away. The footage looked like something out of RoboCop, and it spread like wildfire online. It turned out the robot had been triggered by a coding fault, and one engineer managed to stop it by repositioning the base it was mounted on. And that still wasn't the end of it. Just a few months earlier, in February, another humanoid robot made headlines during a public festival in China. It was behind a safety barrier surrounded by onlookers when it suddenly lurched forward, startling the crowd. Security quickly stepped in and got the situation under control, but the video raised the same old question again. What happens when these robots act unexpectedly in public spaces? So at this point, we're seeing a pattern. Highly capable humanoid robots are increasingly stepping out of labs and into the real world, and we're also seeing how unpredictable they can be, especially in high-stress test environments. Which brings us to a broader issue. How do we actually define safety for machines that walk, act, and move like us, but can throw a punch strong enough to break bones if something goes wrong? The team at the Humanoid Hub had something pretty relevant to say about this. They compared it to the early days of automobiles. 100 years ago, there were 20 deaths per 100 million miles driven in the United States. Today, that number is below 1.5. It's not zero, but it's dramatically better. And the same logic might apply to humanoid robots. We're in the early, unpredictable, sometimes chaotic phase. Robots will malfunction, they'll make mistakes, they'll even be misused, and yet, that shouldn't be a reason to freeze progress entirely, because the alternative, over-regulating out of fear, could stall innovations that might otherwise save lives, improve care for the elderly, take over hazardous tasks, and make society more efficient overall. What's clear, though, is that humanoids won't ever be 100% safe. There's no such thing as perfect software or unbreakable hardware. There are too many variables: software bugs, hardware stress, freak accidents, or just plain human error. But that's not a reason to abandon the idea. Instead, it's about figuring out where to draw the line. How safe is safe enough? The key might be building out real-world data, just like we did with cars, planes, and industrial machines. And that's exactly what China seems to be focusing on right now. On July 18th, they officially opened a massive new AI robot training ground in Mianyang, a city in China's Sichuan province. This isn't just another lab, it's a full-scale platform designed to train, test, and refine embodied AI robots in complex, high-intensity scenarios. Think of it as a kind of boot camp for humanoid robots. The entire setup includes research facilities, testing zones, commercialization support, and perhaps most critically, extreme environment simulations. The goal is to tackle the big bottlenecks in the robotics space: lack of quality data, not enough real-world feedback loops, and the inability to safely test robots in unpredictable conditions. Because let's face it, real environments are messy. There's dust, noise, interference, human movement, weird angles, and chaotic schedules. A robot that works perfectly in a silent lab might act very differently on a construction site or in a crowded subway station. According to officials, the training ground will be structured around one main innovation center, focused on key technologies like system integration, core algorithm development, and pilot manufacturing. On top of that, there will be 2 large-scale scenario training bases where robots are tested across various sectors, like emergency response, manufacturing, healthcare, urban services, and even tourism. Basically, they're stress testing robots in ways that go far beyond typical lab routines. And the ambition here is big. By the end of this year, they aim to have at least 7 robotics companies working inside the training ground. That number jumps to 30 by 2027, with a plan to launch over 10 new robot products and apply more than 30 advanced technologies across different sectors. All of this is backed by a special fund from the provincial government, with a clear objective to make the training facility a national leader in embodied AI development. There's also a commercial angle to all of this. China's humanoid robotics market is projected to hit 870 billion yuan by 2030. That's over $121 billion. So yes, while some of these robot mishaps look chaotic now, they're part of a much bigger picture. It's not just about fixing bugs, it's about scaling an entire industry. At the heart of it, these robots aren't just for entertainment or research anymore. They're being designed to handle real jobs. Whether that's lifting boxes in a warehouse, performing delicate tasks in hospitals, responding to emergencies, or even engaging in robot versus robot combat like the Grok team seems to be leaning into. And that opens up new possibilities, new risks, and a massive need for updated safety frameworks that go beyond just code. Because if these humanoids are going to operate alongside us, whether it's walking next to us on sidewalks or working next to us in factories, we need to make sure we know how to handle them when things don't go as planned. And that means better training systems, smarter fail-safes, clearer regulations, and more transparency around what these machines are actually doing. So yeah, a robot flailing on a crane mid-test is terrifying, but it's also a reminder that we're entering a new era, one where these machines aren't science fiction anymore. They're here, they're powerful, and they're learning fast. All right, so something big just dropped in robotics. Unitree, the Chinese company known for its G1 humanoid and those fast AI robot dogs, just launched a full-size humanoid robot called the R1. And it comes in at just $5,900, which is unheard of for a humanoid. Not five figures, not research-only access. This thing is actually available for regular people. You can just go online and order it. That's a massive deal, so let's talk about it. Now let's start with what this robot actually does. The R1 isn't some flimsy demo bot that barely moves unless it's plugged into a lab wall. It walks, runs, balances, does cartwheels, flips onto its hands, and even throws in a kung fu kick if you ask nicely. And no, it's not controlled with complex scripts or hard coding. It uses real-time AI-powered voice recognition, has built-in cameras for visual input, and can hold basic conversations. There's even a remote control, so if it starts acting weird or a little too confident, you can shut it down instantly. And it's not small either. The R1 stands at 165 centimeters tall, about 5'5", and weighs 25 kilograms, or 55 pounds, so yeah, roughly the size of a teenager, but don't let that fool you, this isn't some lightweight toy. It's built with serious industrial-grade components, and it shows. Every part of it, from the actuators to the outer frame, is designed for strength, precision, and flexibility. It moves with balance and control, whether it's walking over uneven terrain, flipping mid-air, or popping back up after a fall. That kind of mobility comes from having 26 degrees of freedom, basically 26 fully functional joints distributed across its body. You've got movement in the ankles, knees, hips, waist, shoulders, elbows, wrists, neck, all individually controllable, which gives the robot a full range of motion that's eerily human. This is what allows it to pull off fluid movements instead of clunky, rigid motions you usually see in budget bots. In Unitree's own demos, the R1 is shown doing handstands, cartwheels, fast directional changes, and recovering from falls without external help. And these aren't pre-scripted animations. It's doing this dynamically with real-time motor feedback and balance control. That level of agility comes down to custom direct drive actuators developed in-house by Unitree, which allow for fast, accurate torque control without wasting energy or overheating. Powering all this is a lithium battery that gives you about 1 hour of runtime per charge. It's not ideal if you're expecting 8-hour workdays out of your humanoid, but for this price range, that's a fair trade-off. It also charges pretty quickly, so it's not like you'll be stuck waiting around half a day to use it again. Still, there's no built-in system for autonomous battery swapping, something that UB Tech's Walker S2 can actually do, so you'll need to manually plug it in or have a spare battery ready to go. But let's be real, the tech for hot swapping batteries and extended run times already exists. The only reason it's not in here is because they're keeping it affordable. They've clearly made the decision to strip out some of the convenience features in favor of core functionality, which, for early adopters, is the smarter call. And honestly, it's just a matter of time before we see those upgrades trickle into future versions or even as modular add-ons. The foundation is already here. And here's where things get especially interesting. The R1 isn't locked down. It comes with a fully open software development kit, meaning developers can dig into the system and build on top of it. You want to train it to recognize objects, build a new gesture system, turn it into a walking assistant, lab guide, or classroom tutor? You can. You've got access to the robot's motion controls, sensors, camera feeds, and voice modules. You can use Python, C++, or even plug into robot operating system if you're building something more advanced. That's a huge deal because most robots in this price bracket are walled gardens. Either they're pre-programmed with limited functionality, or you have to reverse engineer your way in. With the R1, Unitree is handing you the keys from day one. So what you're getting here isn't just a demo unit to watch dance for 5 minutes. You're getting a working, customizable humanoid platform with real-world potential. Now let's talk about the price again, because that's where Unitree really flipped the table. Their older humanoid, the G1, launched last year for $16,000. Their big industrial model, the H1, lists at over $90,000. And yet here comes the R1 running on similar tech stacks, doing flips and voice commands for under $6,000. For comparison, Tesla's Optimus isn't even out yet, but Elon is aiming for under $20,000 once production scales.
The price of Optimus, I mean, ultimately, I think Optimus is probably like $20,000 or something like that, maybe 30.
Apptronic's Apollo, Boston Dynamics Atlas, Agility Robotics, Digit, Figure 02, they're all sitting way higher. Atlas is around $100,000, Digit costs up to $250,000 depending on the client. Even cheaper open source options like Hope Jr. are more community projects than real products. So yeah, R1 is completely changing the pricing conversation, and you better believe that's putting pressure on every American and European robot company still figuring out how to make this kind of hardware affordable, because Unitree didn't just make something cheaper, they made something that works. It's agile, balanced, responsive, and honestly kind of scary in how nimble it is for the price. The company's been very clear about the audience, too. This isn't just for robotics labs or car factories. It's not some proof of concept that's going to collect dust on a conference stage. They're selling it to developers, tech enthusiasts, research teams, and even schools. And yes, regular people can buy one too if they want. You don't need to be a corporation or a university with $1 million grant. All you need is a solid reason and a spare $6,000. And people are already thinking about what they can do with it. Maybe it greets visitors in a hotel lobby, helps out with education in schools, or acts as a lightweight research assistant in universities. Some are thinking bigger: home assistants, elder care support, personal companions, entertainment bots. None of those use cases are fully ready yet, but the potential's obvious. For example, it could help someone grab meds from a high shelf, respond to voice requests, or even just provide company with simple conversation. And when your friends visit, maybe it shows off a backflip just for fun. It's not folding laundry yet, but we're not that far off anymore. The bigger point here isn't just the price or the features, it's the cultural shift that R1 could spark. For decades, humanoid robots were science fiction, reserved for movies, labs, and the occasional stunt demo at a tech expo. Now, one could literally stand next to your router at home. You're not reading about it, you're living with it. That changes things. Because when robots enter daily life, they bring questions with them about safety, etiquette, usefulness, privacy, even companionship. Unitree isn't ignoring that either. They've put out disclaimers reminding people that this thing is powerful, potentially risky, and not a toy. Keep your distance, don't make dangerous modifications, don't treat it like it's indestructible. There's a reason the manual has bold text about using the robot responsibly and understanding its limits. It's still early days, and even though R1 looks friendly, it's got serious hardware under the hood. People need to treat it with the same caution you would any powerful machine. Now, the timing of this release is also pretty strategic. The company just filed tutoring documents with regulators in China, an early step toward going public on the mainland stock exchange. If they stay on track, they might be the first pure-play humanoid robotics company to go public in China. That alone adds weight to the R1 launch. This is a serious initiative backed by a much bigger vision. Unitree wants to dominate the entry-level humanoid robot space the same way Xiaomi disrupted the smartphone world years ago. And honestly, the comparison fits. When Xiaomi dropped those ultra-budget phones, it wasn't just about price, it was about access. Suddenly, millions of people could afford tech that was once out of reach. The same thing is happening here. R1 is the first real humanoid robot to break below that psychological $6,000 barrier. It's not a gimmick or a stripped-down toy, it's the full package. Real legs, real arms, real AI, real functionality. And sure, it's not perfect. You only get about 1 hour of runtime per charge. You'll need to manually recharge or swap batteries. It's not babysitting kids or cooking dinner, yet. But what matters is that it's no longer just a lab experiment, it's a product. A real one, ready for use, ready for play, ready for development. And that's why this moment feels like more than just another tech launch. It feels like a threshold. All right, something big just dropped and it's flying under the radar. Google just launched a new AI tool called OPAL that lets you vibe code real web apps. And it's not some half-baked demo either. It builds full workflows you can edit, share, and remix directly from your browser. While that's happening, Google's other AIs are out here crushing international math competitions and decoding ancient Roman history in seconds. So yeah, things are getting serious. Let's talk about it. All right, now OPAL feels almost too simple at first, but that's the point. You're not diving into menus or writing any code, you just start typing. So here's how it works. You open up OPAL, type in what kind of app you want to build, let's say a budgeting tool or maybe something simple like a daily planner, and OPAL takes that description, runs it through Google's internal models, and gives you a working prototype. You're not just seeing a black box output here. OPAL actually lays out the entire app as a visual workflow. Every part of the process is shown as a step. Inputs, outputs, logic blocks, data handling, it's all mapped visually. You can click into each step, tweak it, change the logic, or edit the prompts directly. And if you want to add something completely new, there's a drag and drop toolbar that lets you bring in fresh components without any scripting. You're literally telling the AI what you want, watching it generate the logic, and then fine-tuning it in a flowchart style editor. The whole thing feels more like prototyping with ideas rather than code. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting. Once you're done, you can hit publish, and your app is live on the web, shareable through a link. Anyone with a Google account can access it. There's even a gallery of public apps built by other users that you can remix. So if someone already built a quiz generator or a habit tracker, you can fork that template, make your own tweaks, and release your own version. The remix system is built right into the UI. Google's been framing this as a vibe coding tool. That's a term that's starting to catch on, and it basically means that users don't have to think like programmers anymore. You're thinking in terms of what the app should feel like and what it should do, not what code needs to run under the hood. Tools like Canva, Figma, and Replit have already moved in that direction, but OPAL pushes it further by making natural language the primary interface. And it's not like Google didn't have something similar before. Their AI Studio already supports prompt-based workflows for app creation. But OPAL brings that down to a more intuitive, visual level. The whole idea is to make app development approachable for people who've never written a single function. You don't need to understand variables, conditionals, or loops. You just describe what you want and edit what you see. Now, as of today, OPAL's still in public beta and it's limited to the United States for now. But even in this early stage, testers have already started using it to create static front-end apps like calculators, checklist tools, mini planners, and custom portfolio templates. It's not quite ready for full-scale back-end systems or real-time apps, but honestly, that's not the point yet. This is about rapid prototyping and casual product thinking. It's for educators, creatives, small business owners, and even hobbyists who've got ideas but never bothered learning to code. One cool aspect is how OPAL handles logic. Let's say you're making a quiz app and you want it to track correct answers and give feedback. Instead of setting up conditionals or writing JavaScript, you just describe what should happen when a user clicks an answer. You could say something like, if the answer is correct, display a congratulatory message and add 1 point to the score, and OPAL maps that into the workflow. That visual mapping also helps you troubleshoot. Since everything is modular, you can isolate where things go wrong and fix them step by step. No need to parse through hundreds of lines of syntax. It's basically like watching your app's brain work in real time. And because it's tied into Google's broader ecosystem, there's potential for even deeper integrations later. Think Firebase for backend, Cloud Functions for dynamic tasks, maybe even Gemini integration down the line. None of that's live yet, but the infrastructure is clearly being laid. Now let's talk about where this fits in the larger AI space. Now, as of today, OPAL's still in public beta and it's limited to the United States for now. But even in this early stage, testers have already started using it to create static front-end apps like calculators, checklist tools, mini planners, and custom portfolio templates. It's not quite ready for full-scale back-end systems or real-time apps, but honestly, that's not the point yet. This is about rapid prototyping and casual product thinking. It's for educators, creatives, small business owners, and even hobbyists who've got ideas but never bothered learning to code. One cool aspect is how OPAL handles logic. Let's say you're making a quiz app and you want it to track correct answers and give feedback. Instead of setting up conditionals or writing JavaScript, you just describe what should happen when a user clicks an answer. You could say something like, if the answer is correct, display a congratulatory message and add 1 point to the score, and OPAL maps that into the workflow. That visual mapping also helps you troubleshoot. Since everything is modular, you can isolate where things go wrong and fix them step by step. No need to parse through hundreds of lines of syntax. It's basically like watching your app's brain work in real time. And because it's tied into Google's broader ecosystem, there's potential for even deeper integrations later. Think Firebase for backend, Cloud Functions for dynamic tasks, maybe even Gemini integration down the line. None of that's live yet, but the infrastructure is clearly being laid. Now let's talk about where this fits in the larger AI space. Microsoft's been aggressively pushing GitHub Copilot across its suite. OpenAI's code interpreter, now called Advanced Data Analysis, is out there doing real-time programming. Meanwhile, platforms like Lovable and Cursor are riding the same vibe coding wave, focusing more on creativity than syntax. OPAL is Google's answer to all that. It's not a dev tool, it's an access point for regular users to build things they otherwise wouldn't even attempt. And that's important because the no-code and low-code market is exploding. Gartner's saying it's growing more than 20% annually, driven mostly by people who aren't professional developers. Tools like Webflow, Glide, and Bubble have already cracked that code, but OPAL brings the same energy with generative AI at the center. Still, there are limits. Right now, you can't hook up a database, there's no real authentication beyond Google login, and backend logic is off the table. If you want a dynamic app with user accounts and API calls, you'll need something more advanced. But for the kind of apps most people want to experiment with, stuff like generators, planners, forms, or interactive visual tools, it's already super capable. Now, not everything's sunshine and vibes. There's a valid concern about ownership and data control. These apps are hosted on Google servers, and they're built with proprietary models. That raises questions about intellectual property, especially if someone uses OPAL to prototype a product idea or business tool. For now, it's probably best for experimentation and early concepts, not for anything mission critical or privacy sensitive. But overall, the vision here is clear. Lower the barrier to creation, make software feel like sketching an idea, and let AI handle the heavy lifting. It's one of the cleanest implementations of that idea we've seen so far. Now, switching gears for a second, let's talk about something that went a bit under the radar but might be just as impressive: Google DeepMind's performance at the International Mathematical Olympiad this year. So just for context, the IMO is the absolute elite of math competitions. 6 insanely hard problems in algebra, geometry, number theory, and combinatorics, solved by the smartest math students from around the world. Only 8% get a gold medal. Last year, DeepMind's models AlphaProof and AlphaGeometry 2 managed to score 28 points out of 42, which is silver medal level. They needed help translating problems into formal logic languages, and the whole process took 2 or 3 days. Impressive, but not human level yet. This year, though, they came back with a new version of Gemini in deep think mode, and things got wild. Gemini solved 5 out of 6 problems perfectly, scoring 35 points, and it did it within the 4.5-hour competition time limit. That's officially a gold medal score, and the IMO graders said the solutions were precise, clean, and surprisingly easy to follow. The difference? Deep Think mode. It's a new reasoning setup that lets the model run multiple lines of thought at the same time instead of following just one path. That means it explores, compares, and combines different ideas before giving a final answer. The team also trained it on a massive dataset of high-quality math solutions and used reinforcement learning focused on theorem solving. And it worked. No translation needed, no formal languages, just natural language in, full proofs out. This version of Gemini is being rolled out to trusted testers right now, including actual mathematicians, and could become a major asset for research, education, and scientific discovery. All right, now here's one last project you probably didn't hear about, but it's super clever, especially if you're into history. Google researchers just launched a model called Aeneas. It's trained to restore and contextualize ancient Roman inscriptions, yep, actual Latin texts carved into stone, often damaged or half erased by time. Traditionally, historians would spend months analyzing fragments and trying to match them with similar texts to figure out what they said, when they were written, and where they came from. Aeneas does that in seconds. It can match wording, syntax, and stylistic features across more than 176,000 Latin inscriptions pulled from databases like the epigraphic database Roma and Heidelberg. It's even multimodal, meaning it looks at both the text and the actual image of the inscription. That lets it estimate geographical origin, filling in blanks where even the number of missing characters is unknown. It restored damaged inscriptions with up to 73% accuracy, and even when the gap length was unknown, it still hit 58%. That's a huge deal for archaeology and classical studies. They even tested it on Emperor Augustus' Res Gestae, one of the most debated inscriptions in Roman history. And Aeneas gave a probabilistic distribution of dates that perfectly aligned with current scholarly theories. It's now available for free at predictingthepast.com, and they're open sourcing the code and dataset too. So yeah, AI is not just making apps and solving math problems, it's literally decoding the past now. Ameca just got an update that lets you rewrite its entire identity in seconds. Give it a new name, a new voice, a whole new personality, and it instantly becomes something else. China's Walker S2 charges itself and works non-stop without a single human touch. Leju Robotics is rolling out factory-ready bots backed by Tencent, and Hyundai is sending humanoids into real shipyards to do high-risk welding jobs. This is all happening right now, so let's talk about it. So Ameca from Engineered Arts just got a serious brain boost. You might know Ameca as that ultra-expressive humanoid robot with human-like facial movements that went viral for its creepy, real expressions. Well, now it's not just good at mimicking emotions, it's becoming useful. And I mean actually useful. Engineered Arts dropped a brand new system called ROS, not the open source version, but their own take. This ROS is short for Robot Operating System, and it turns Ameca into a digital employee. You can assign it a role, personality, language, even knowledge for a specific job, all through a browser, no coding needed. In a recent demo, Will Jackson, the founder of Engineered Arts, showed how simple it really is. You log into the Tritium account, access the ROS interface, and then customize everything. Want the robot to only speak French and be named Chloe? Done in seconds. Want her to be the greatest paint salesperson of all time? You literally just type that into the field. Add in a list of Dulux paint colors, activate computer vision, and next thing you know, Chloe is scanning the room, recognizing the lighting and materials, and confidently recommending paint shades like Sapphire Salute to brighten up the space, and she does it like she's been selling paint for years. That's the wild part. The interface has 5 main tabs: identity, languages, personality, knowledge, and abilities. Each one shapes the way Ameca acts and interacts. And again, no programming, it all happens in the browser. 1 second it's a tour guide, next it's a customer support agent. The speed and simplicity are what really stand out. Before this, making a humanoid robot act differently meant rewiring things, running code, hiring devs. Now it's literally drag, drop, and deploy. And the design's getting more flexible too. They now offer desktop versions of Ameca in black, white, or gray with the same expressive face and full functionality. Engineered Arts is making it accessible to businesses, museums, even schools. which honestly is a big deal because for the first time, humanoids are inching toward being practical, not just impressive. All right, now back to AI robots. But this time we're heading to China, where things are getting seriously advanced. UB Tech just stepped way ahead of the curve with their latest robot, the Walker S2. Now, the big innovation here isn't how it talks or looks, it's how it keeps going. This is the first humanoid robot that swaps its own battery without human help. No cables, no charging ports, no downtime. It walks to a station, pops out the drained pack from its chest, docks it, grabs a fresh one, installs it, and walks off. Takes under 3 minutes, and it's been tested in live environments. NIO, Zeekr, and BYD factories are already running these bots during actual production hours. Now, the battery system itself is dual module. There's a primary and a failover battery. If the main one dies or malfunctions in the middle of a task, Walker S2 switches over to the backup without missing a beat. No reboot, no memory loss, nothing. On top of that, it doesn't always go for a battery swap. It calculates whether to swap or just plug in depending on the urgency of its current task. So if it's doing something critical, it'll swap. If it's in standby or doing low priority stuff, it might just dock and charge. This system is called dynamic energy management, and it's what allows the robot to operate nonstop, 24/7. What makes this possible on a larger scale is that UB Tech didn't go with custom locked-in battery tech. They built a standardized battery platform, so fleets of robots can all use the same battery modules. That makes it easier to scale operations without reinventing the wheel every time you expand to a new factory or warehouse. But there's another level to this. UB Tech has a cloud-based platform called BrainNet. It's a kind of orchestration system where multiple robots work together like a swarm. There's a super brain running in the cloud, and then each robot has its own sub-brain. The super brain handles big picture logic, scheduling, task distribution, optimizing routes. The sub-brains handle real-time movement, obstacle avoidance, local decisions, so these robots aren't just walking around bumping into each other. They're negotiating tasks and space in real time based on what's happening on the floor. It's all backed by some serious artificial intelligence infrastructure. The superbrain uses a massive multimodal reasoning model trained on real-world manufacturing data. Retrieval augmented generation helps it stay aware of the context and update plans dynamically. And on the robot itself, you've got transformer-based control, semantic SLAM for mapping and navigation, and agile manipulation so it can adjust its grip and motion based on the weight and shape of an object. And these robots don't shuffle or roll. The Walker S2 walks like an actual human with balance correction, adaptive step control, and proper gait mechanics that makes it capable of moving through cluttered industrial environments, aligning with charging docks, or weaving through forklifts and human workers. UB Tech's goal is not just efficiency, it's autonomy, and it's being backed by major partners. In May this year, they teamed up with Huawei. That brings in telecom, 5th generation network, edge, artificial intelligence, and cloud support. All the infrastructure you need to take this from one factory to hundreds. Now, they're not the only Chinese company making moves. Leju Robotics, also out of China, has been steadily building their own line of humanoid robots. You might have seen their earlier robots like the Alos or Cuevo models. Recently, they introduced a smaller humanoid called Roban 2, built for everything from light to heavy factory work. The company's been around since 2016 and got major backing from Tencent, Shenzhen Capital, and Hongtai Fund. And they've even been recognized as a potential unicorn and were part of the Tencent and Microsoft Accelerator. What makes Leju interesting is their dual-track strategy. They're not just focused on research and development, but also on building a complete industrial service ecosystem. That includes 7 regional centers, multiple research and development hubs, and a couple of major manufacturing bases across China. Their robots are being used in education, medical, and home care scenarios, and they've even made appearances at big events like the Korea Winter Olympics and the Huawei Developer Conference. One of their recent highlights was the Cuovo robot, which integrates with Pangu's large artificial intelligence model to carry out warehouse tasks. There was even footage of the Cuovo moving totes at FAW's car factory. So while UB Tech is focusing on autonomy and battery logistics, Leju is building out modular platforms with specialized applications, more like adaptable workers for specific industries. Now let's shift focus to something a little more industrial. Hyundai's latest experiment in shipbuilding. They've teamed up with Neura Robotics from Germany to deploy humanoid robots in a shipyard setting, specifically the 4NE1 model. This robot is being tested to handle some of the most dangerous tasks out there, like high heat welding and heavy assembly work. And we're talking real-world testing, not just lab simulations. Hyundai is setting up physical environments at their shipbuilding sites in South Korea to see how well these robots can adapt to chaotic, heavy-duty workflows. The 4NE1 isn't just some generic humanoid, it's got adaptive learning capabilities and cognitive functions, which means it can be trained to handle new types of work. But for it to survive in a shipyard, it also needs seriously tough hardware. So part of the partnership is focused on reinforcing the robot's body, designing artificial intelligence-based control systems for high-precision welding, and developing custom welding tools that can be operated by robots. It's a full pipeline, from software to mechanics to training data. The first working prototype is expected by the end of 2026, with commercial use possibly kicking off in 2027. Now here's the kicker. Hyundai owns Boston Dynamics, the creators of the Atlas robot. So you'd think they'd just use Atlas, right? But apparently Atlas isn't ready yet to learn and adapt fast enough for this kind of work, which says a lot about how fast Neura Robotics is moving. Other companies like Persona Artificial Intelligence in the United States are also working on humanoid welding robots for Korean shipyards, so this whole area is about to heat up fast. And that's not a bad thing, because when you think about how dangerous, repetitive, and understaffed a lot of industrial work is, humanoid robots that can take over welding, heavy lifting, or inspection duties are more than just cool tech. They're solving real-world labor problems. So yeah, we're officially in a new phase now. The facial expressions and demo videos were just the start. These machines are learning fast, thinking better, charging on their own, and now they're showing up to work. This new AI model came out of nowhere, and it's already breaking the rules. It's twice as fast, smarter than most of its siblings, and wasn't even trained. Seriously. No long GPU runs, no new data, just a wild technique called assembly of experts that fuses the best parts of multiple models into one killer brain. The result? DeepSeek R1 T2 Chimera. Fast, compact, insanely efficient, and it might just be the future of AI. Here's how they pulled it off. So you're looking at a language model that combines three earlier powerhouses: R10528, the original R1, and V30324, into one brain that thinks faster, writes tighter, and still keeps the smarts that made R1 famous. The trick that makes it possible is called Assembly of Experts, or AOE. So let's start there. Most of us know the normal drill for improving a large language model. You collect fresh data, spin up a training run that burns through cloud GPU units for weeks, and hope the new version doesn't overfit or hallucinate. AOE skips that grind entirely. Each parent model has thousands of matching weight tensors. Think of those tensors as microscopic knobs that control how the model fires. Instead of retraining, the engineers open the safe Lenser files in PyTorch, pick only the tensors that matter, and literally average or interpolate the numbers. But they set a weight for each parent. Technically, lambda 1 for V30324, lambda 2 for R1, lambda 3 for R10528, then merge. Because you're just crunching raw numbers, the job scales in simple linear time. Double the parameters, double the math, still affordable. No gradients, no backpropagation passes, just straight tensor algebra that any decent workstation can finish while you grab coffee. Think of it like a giant brain with 671 billion settings. But instead of using all of them at once, it only activates around 37 billion for each word. A built-in router decides which 8 out of 256 expert mini-brains should handle each word, depending on what's needed. This setup makes the model way more efficient, about 18 times cheaper to run than one that uses everything all the time. And since all the DeepSeek models share this same setup, the AOE method can mix and match pieces between them like puzzle parts that always fit together. Now, why does R1T2 feel different? The first headline is speed. On benchmark runs, the Chimera produces answers roughly twice as fast as R10528 and more than 20% faster than the baseline R1. Those gains come from two places. First, the routed experts from R1 keep the deep reasoning routines intact. Second, the shared and attention layers mostly come from V30324, which was tuned to write concise answers. Put them together, and you get a model that thinks like R1 but talks like V3, so every response burns fewer tokens, shorter output means less GPU time per answer, and smaller bills for anyone running the model at scale. But speed is only half the story. People worry that shortcut merges might mangle quality, so the TNG team hammered R1 T2 with every standard exam they could find. On MT Bench, it scores right near R10528. On GPQA Diamond, which stresses deep factual recall, it lands between the parents. On AIME 2024 and AIME 2025 Math, challenges it hangs neck and neck with R1, sometimes edging ahead, all while shaving off big chunks of text. Big Code Bench shows it can still write clean code blocks and follow structured instructions, thanks to V30324's influence. And because AOE leaves the experts intact, the chain of thought reasoning stays readable. You still see every calculation, just without the rambling commentary. Here's where things got unexpectedly interesting. When the engineers slowly increased how much of R1 they included in the mix, specifically past the 50% mark, the model suddenly began wrapping its answers in less than, think greater than, and less than, / think greater than, tags, just like R1 was trained to do during its reinforcement learning phase. Below that point, the tags didn't show up at all, go just a little over, and suddenly they appeared in nearly every answer. And the same thing happened with token count. A tiny bump in R1's weight made the responses noticeably longer, and pulling it back made them shrink again. That kind of sharp shift shows that specific behaviors are tucked into very precise corners of this massive 671 billion parameter space. And AOE lets you hit those corners cleanly without breaking anything. That led the team to try a new approach. Instead of merging everything, they focused only on R1's routed expert layers and left all the attention, blocks, shared layers, and routing systems from V30324 exactly as they were. In that setup, the model kept R1's smart reasoning but stayed fast and efficient. The lesson was clear. R1's deep thinking lives in those expert layers, while V3's structure is more than enough to manage them. So TNG went all in. They used R1's expert tensors at full strength, left the rest entirely V30324, and released that version as DeepSeek R1 Chimera. They shared it under the MIT license, uploaded it to Hugging Face, and by late May, it was already handling 5 billion tokens a day through their Shoots serverless platform, which shows it's not just an experiment, it actually works at scale. Community feedback came fast. Over on Reddit's local llama forum, early adopters called it the first Chimera model that feels like a bona fide upgrade rather than a curiosity. Users praised the snappy responses and more grounded tone, reporting fewer hallucinations than with plain R1 or V3. Math-heavy workflows in particular benefited because the model's chain of thought stayed clean yet skipped redundant steps, trimming compute costs without hiding the logic. For those wondering about hardware, the team validated on two very different clusters. 8 NVIDIA H100 94GB NVL cards on one side, and 8 AMD MI325X 256GB boards on the other. They hosted multiple variants in VLLM and ran identical prompt queues. R1 T2 beat its parents for latency by a wide margin on both stacks, proving the merge doesn't depend on any special CUDA magic. If your business pays by millisecond of inference, that latency drop translates to direct saving. Environmental impact is another hidden bonus. Sparse activation already cuts power, but dumping 40% of the tokens means 40% fewer memory transfers, which is where a lot of GPU energy goes. Multiply that by 5 billion tokens a day and the carbon savings add up. Not a headline-grabbing number on its own, but a meaningful dent over time when every major LLM service is fighting to keep energy use in check. Let's hit the details of AOE itself, because you'll probably want to try it. The system compares each pair of layers, or tensors, from the parent models using something called normalized Frobenius distance. That's just a fancy way of measuring how different two layers are, scaled to their size. If that difference is small, below a threshold they call delta, you can skip merging that layer because it's basically the same in both models. Set delta to 1.5 and you'll merge nearly all the routed expert layers, plus any attention layers that really stand out. Bump it to 2.5, and most of the shared layers stick with the V3 base, which leads to even tighter, cleaner answers. But if you push past 3, the model finally starts to lose intelligence, meaning you've cut too much of R1's brain out. The point isn't to memorize the exact numbers here, it's to understand that you can fine-tune what you keep or skip and land on a blend that works best instead of blindly averaging two entire networks. And then there's this idea of the parameter valley. When they charted out the results across different blends, the graph didn't look like sharp mountains and cliffs. It looked like a smooth hill. That means almost every combination between the parents gives you a usable model. So rather than navigating some dangerous mess of broken fusions, you're in a wide open space of solid working hybrids. And AOE is the tool that helps you explore it. And it doesn't stop at DeepSeek. Any group of models that follow the same layout, like Gemini, Qwen, or maybe even future OpenAI MOE models, could be sliced, blended, and reassembled the same way. You don't have to sit around waiting for a perfect fine-tune to be released. Grab 2 or 3 open models with different strengths, pull out the expert layers you want, vision from one, math from another, maybe code from a third, and stack them together. The only thing you need is enough drive space for the safe tensor files and the time to let PyTorch do its job. For developers building real products, this isn't just a research toy, it's a money saver. If your chatbot needs to show its work for legal, medical, or financial reasons, then full reasoning traces are a must. R1T2 gives you that clarity, but with fewer tokens per answer, which cuts your cost every time someone asks a question, and if your product has to respond in real time, like an assistant running in a browser, the speed boost, being twice as fast as R10528, could make the difference between lag and smooth replies. Plus, the MIT license means no legal drama. You can plug it right into your backend tomorrow and go live. Training costs are another big deal. Pre-training a model like this at 8-bit precision burns through somewhere between 10 trillion and 1,000 trillion floating point operations per weight. Throwing all that away just to train a new one from scratch is nuts. AWE gives you a way to reuse those massive investments, mix in new traits, and keep improving without ever touching gradient descent. It's faster, cheaper, and easier on the planet. There's one last little twist worth sharing. During benchmarks, the team forced each model to start its response with a less than think greater than tag, just to see if the full reasoning trace would show up. V30324 barely ever followed through. R1, on the other hand, always responded with a proper closing less than / think greater than. But here's the cool part. In the merged models, right when R1's contribution hit exactly 0.544, they saw a sharp shift from almost never producing those tags to almost always doing it. That near-perfect flip is a textbook example of an emergent trait, some deeply embedded behavior that only turns on when you cross a very specific line in the weight mix. If you're a researcher trying to understand how these models think, that's pure gold. An AI surgeon just pulled off flawless gallbladder removals. Humanoid bots in Beijing faced off in the world's first all-robot football match. Amazon's million-strong fleet got a new deep fleet brain. Intel spun RealSense into a fresh $50 million robotics powerhouse. The eerily lifelike AI Da painted King Charles. Hugging Face unleashed a hackable desktop droid for $300. Researchers turbocharge safe robot training with QStack, and Figure AI insists your home will soon be crawling with humanoids. All of it just happened, so let's talk about it. First up, researchers at Johns Hopkins just pulled off something that a few years ago would have sounded completely insane. An AI-powered surgical robot removed gallbladders on its own with zero physical assistance and nailed it every single time. They started with the Da Vinci Research Kit, a widely used robotic surgery system, but upgraded it with a powerful machine learning model. The result? A new platform they called the Surgical Robot Transformer Hierarchy, or SRTH for short. Unlike earlier systems that relied on strict instructions or had human operators guiding the arms, this one was trained almost like a medical student. It watched hours of real gallbladder surgeries, just video, no step-by-step breakdowns, and learned what to do by observing how experienced surgeons move, react, and adapt mid-operation. Then they tested it. Not on simple tissue or pig parts, but on advanced human-like models with synthetic organs that mimic the look, feel, and structure of real human anatomy. And this robot wasn't just mimicking motions, it was fully executing the procedure, start to finish, across 8 separate surgeries. 17 individual tasks, including identifying and isolating tiny ducts and arteries, placing microscopic surgical clips, and cleanly cutting tissue with surgical scissors. What's wild is how it handled the unpredictability. If the synthetic tissue looked slightly different from what it saw during training, it adjusted on the fly. And it could actually understand verbal cues from the surgical team thanks to the same type of transformer-based AI that powers models like ChatGPT. So if a nurse said something like, "check the left clip," it could interpret that and react accordingly. Every single surgery was a success, a full 100% completion rate with no errors. Sure, it took a bit longer than a human surgeon, but the precision matched what you'd expect from someone with years of experience. That alone makes this a massive leap from the old STAR system, which back in the year 2022 could only operate on a pig with heavy human guidance, and only after staff had marked the tissue with colored lines and the robot followed a predefined blueprint. SRTH, on the other hand, operated freely, adjusted in real time, and completed all procedures without relying on scripted actions. The lead researchers say this isn't just about technical performance, it's about trust. For the first time, we're looking at a surgical robot that's not just good at repeating tasks, but actually understands the procedure well enough to make judgment calls. They believe that with more training, it could handle a range of surgeries and eventually operate on real patients with little or no supervision. And honestly, after this, that doesn't feel like a stretch anymore. Now, leave the operating theater and sprint over to a football pitch in Beijing's Yizhuang zone, where 4 squads of booster robotics humanoids just played China's first tournament without any joystick jockeys in the back room. Each side fielded 3 active bots and a substitute, running 2 10-minute halves with a quick breather. These machines spotted a ball from 20 meters out with better than 90% accuracy, tracked teammates, read the field lines, and decided when to pass or blast a shot. Tsinghua University's lineup edged out China Agricultural University's Mountain Sea Group 5-3 in the final collisions allowed, so long as nobody programmed dirty tackles. Organizers likened the skill level to kindergartners, awkward gait and all, yet the point isn't finesse, it's pure autonomy. Founder Cheng Hao already talks about mixed human-robot matches but stresses total safety first. Given the speed at which the underlying vision and control algorithms are evolving, that crossover game suddenly sounds less like science fiction and more like an entry on next year's calendar. While we're on big milestones, Amazon just rolled its 1 millionth production robot onto the floor of a fulfillment center in Japan. Robots now sit nearly 1-to-1 with human employees across more than 300 global facilities, and the entire fleet has a new conductor, DeepFleet, a generative AI foundation model that coordinates every little shuttle's path. By anticipating traffic and reshuffling tasks on the fly, DeepFleet cuts travel time a solid 10%, meaning packages should reach the conveyor belt and your doorstep faster and with lower cost per trip. Vice President Scott Dresser points out that these machines aren't displacing frontline staff. They're taking the unforgiving heavy lifting jobs while Amazon upskills workers into technical roles. Since the year 2019, 700,000 people have moved through those training tracks, learning to maintain or program the very bots whirring past them. Speaking of companies betting hard on physical AI, Intel just spun out its RealSense division into a standalone firm and announced a $50 million Series A backed by MediaTek Innovation Fund and Intel Capital. Nadav Orbach, who ran Intel's Incubation and Disruptive Innovation Unit, now wears the Chief Executive Officer badge. RealSense keeps roughly 130 engineers, and its depth-sensing cameras already live inside drones, factory pickers, and autonomous lawnmowers. Orbach says the fresh cash will unlock new product lines aimed squarely at safety and plug-and-play ease. Intel hangs on to a minority stake, but the message is clear. The timing is now for physical AI, and they want external capital to chase the demand curve before someone else does. Art lovers aren't left out of the disruption either. AI Da, the ultra-realistic humanoid with hazel eyes and a straight-cut bob, just unveiled an oil portrait of King Charles called Algorithm King. The robot's arms swap tools depending on the medium. Last year it painted Alan Turing and fetched more than $1 million at auction. AI Da explains every brushstroke in slow, deliberate cadence, claiming the goal isn't to boost the bank account, but to spark debate around responsible innovation. The new piece nods to the monarch's work on environmental conservation and interfaith dialogue. Creator Aidan Meller built AI Da in the year 2019 with Oxford and Birmingham AI researchers, framing the whole project as an ethical arts experiment. The robot doubles down. It's here to widen conversation, not to push human painters off the canvas. Whether collectors accept code-generated artwork as true creative output is, in AI Da's own words, an important and interesting point of conversation. Back on the desktop, Hugging Face wants a tiny robot sitting next to your keyboard. Reachy Mini stands 11 inches tall, wiggles antennas, tracks your face, and dances out of the box with 15 behaviors. Yet its real draw is openness. For $299, you get a kit that tethers to your computer. Throw in another $150 and the company bundles a Raspberry Pi 5, a battery, Wi-Fi, 4 microphones, and an accelerometer, letting the bot roam untethered when shipments start late this summer. Every hardware file and software routine goes straight to GitHub, so kids, hobbyists, or anyone who can string together Python can teach Reachy new tricks or download someone else's. Hugging Face even plans JavaScript and Scratch support, hoping to seed a community that shares motion packs the way modders trade game skins. Training robots safely and quickly is still a bottleneck, though, and researchers from the University of Sydney and NVIDIA just proposed a clever workaround called Q-Stack. Traditional reinforcement learning either learns fast and crashes often, or stays safe at turtle speed because it depends on hand-tuned cost maps. Q-Stack fuses model predictive control, the discipline planner that checks constraints every millisecond, with deep reinforcement learning but swaps out the usual gradient step for Stein variational gradient descent. Think of model predictive control as a GPS route and Stein variational gradient descent as a swarm of particles being nudged toward higher reward paths. The beauty here is that Q values themselves generate the safety-aware cost map on the fly, so no one has to write custom penalties for every nut and bolt. In simulation, Q-Stack hit 80% task performance with just 68.8% of the samples needed by the next best competitor, and it nailed fruit picking in the real world at 93.3% success. That kind of efficiency and built-in safety could spill into warehouse pick-and-place, autonomous vans weaving through traffic, or any scenario where trial and error is pricey. Of course, none of this matters if general-purpose humanoids fail to step out of the lab. Brett Adcock, founder of Figure AI, just told the Around the Prompt podcast that homes will see useful bipedal helpers within single-digit years. Figure's latest update let its Helix robot perform an hour of nonstop logistics work on a conveyor belt, approaching human pace. Adcock credits sturdier actuators and neural networks flexible enough to handle messy environments. Venture capital agrees. Figure has banked $2.34 billion so far, with $1.5 billion landing in February's Series C that valued the company at $2.6 billion. Robotics funding overall hit $6.1 billion in the year 2024, up 19% year on year, with Tesla's Optimus breakdancing on factory floors, Boston Dynamics Atlas cartwheeling, and Agility Robotics Digit marching through Amazon pilots. Adcock's bold claim is that eventually a sidewalk or an office will host as many humanoid robots as humans, and he sees the form factor as the ultimate deployment vector for artificial general intelligence. Critics like Fei Li wonder if a single silhouette is truly energy efficient across every job, yet Adcock counters that hardware reliability has turned the corner, and the real question now is scale, not feasibility. Let me know which part shocked you the most. Was it the surgical robot, the football bots, or something else entirely? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit subscribe if you haven't already, and like the video to support the channel. Thanks for watching. Catch you in the next one.